On the agenda tonight, we're going back to 2019. We're going to be having a listen to Madonna performing Like a Prayer at the Eurovision Song Contest. Hello, Phil here from Wings of Pegasus, and welcome to another analysis video. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. So, a quick bit of background behind this request, as all of the videos on the channel are requests to analyse bands, guitarists, vocalists, and auto-tune more recently. This was one that totally flew under my radar back in 2019. I know that I was very busy in 2019, so I didn't even know this existed, which has actually given me an advantage because everybody must have done their reaction videos at that time where they heard Madonna's live performance and were comparing it with the later release that sounded a bit auto-tuned, actually really auto-tuned. But having watched a few videos, obviously there are loads of vocal coaches that do reaction videos or analysis videos, but I think they call them reactions. And I saw the video and my first instinct was that this is something that can happen live. When you've played in big venues, and the Eurovision Song Contest is huge, they play in massive venues, sometimes you literally can't hear your voice and you can only hear the backing. And instinctively, that's what I thought when I watched the performance. I thought Madonna cannot hear her own voice here. And then I was watching some of these vocal coach videos and they were saying about breath support and her being out of shape. Somebody else said that there was auto-tune that was snapping her voice to the wrong notes. And I thought it's none of those things. So I've done the waveform analysis. We're going to be having a listen to Madonna with the live version of the song and then the auto-tuned version of the song that was later released on her official channel. So first of all, we're going to jump into the vocal as it was on the night. And the vocal has backing vocals behind it. So sometimes the software doesn't pick up Madonna's lead vocal, but it does pick it up a lot more than I was expecting it to, which is great. So let's jump straight into it and have a listen to the actual performance as it was.
Life is a mystery, everyone must stand up.
So there's our opening vocal phrase, and instantly you can see from the waveforms that this is not auto-tuned. So the videos that you might have seen people saying that it's snapping her voice to the wrong note and they had some kind of malfunction on the auto-tune backstage, that isn't what's happening here, because if I now take this back to the first vocal phrases, you'll also notice how in the very opening stages it sounds pretty good. She's in key, which means, I think, that she's got a reference point for her voice, but then she loses it. As soon as the volume starts to increase on the backing, she now can't hear her voice. But I'll explain that in a second. Let's have another little listen, but I'll stop it to show you these waveforms.
Life is a mystery, everyone must stand up.
So this first phrase, we can see when we're looking at auto-tune, we know it snaps it to the lines, and it's very obvious when that happens. And let me actually just have a flick to the auto-tune version, and it's this kind of thing. You'll see it right on the line, and right on the line, right on the line, right on the line. So anyway, this is the auto-tune version that was then later released, which just sounds really auto-tuned. But going back to the natural vocal, she has a reference point to begin with, so she's just slightly flat and then pretty much dead on the line and then a little bit flat. And this part of the vocal that is ascending slightly to the line here, again, you don't get this with auto-tune, so it's not snapping her voice to any notes. And here she's slightly flat, but then vibratos kind of through the note. And these notes here, we're not getting just a straight note on a line. By the way, the yellow line is Madonna's voice, and it's being represented as pitch, and the notes are on the left-hand side. So I would already say that she is very accurate pitch-wise. As we can see, just dead on, but then slightly flat, descending through the note, which I've said that singers with great pitch do that. They go through notes. Auto-tune doesn't allow you to do that. Let's have a listen to it again.
Life is a mystery. Everyone must stand up.
So here, even with this opening phrase, we've got this la 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 la. These notes are still not dead on the line, so we know it's not auto-tuned, and therefore, we can say that Madonna went out on stage with the intention of singing live without auto-tune. So she's doing it, what we consider now, as old school, because she's not relying on technology. And this brings up an interesting point about performing live. And would you rather Madonna had gone on stage and mimed? I think she would have got even more stick if that had happened. They said, oh, she's miming at Eurovision, which is a singing contest, and she should be singing live. She's gone out there with the intention of singing live with no help whatsoever on her vocals. I think what's happening here is she's got in-ear monitors in. If you've performed in big venues, you know that the sound becomes even more difficult to manage the bigger the venues get. I've mentioned about playing guitar and singing, because I play guitar and sing. It means that sometimes your amp, when you're playing on a very large stage, your amp is miles behind you, it's being mic'd up, and your guitar sound is coming out of speakers that are in front of you. So it means that you can't hear your amp because it's miles away. You physically can see what's going on, but you can't hear it. So you just have to play your solo, hoping that the practice is going to pay off and you put your fingers in the right place and bend the string high enough. But that's muscle memory in your hand, so you can get away with it. Vocal cords are totally different because you always have to judge your notes on what you can hear. And you can do this as an experiment if you want to. Why not? Get this song on like a prayer, get a backing track, and turn it up so loud that you can't hear your voice, and then try and sing it. And you will notice how, without any reference point, you've got a totally random place that your voice goes. You can't judge the intervals, you can't use the muscle memory, because you can't judge where the next note is. So as we progress through this, you'll be able to hear where Madonna loses her reference points for her voice. There it is. As soon as more voices get added in to the backing track and hit her in-ear monitors, a huge thing to mention here is that Madonna will be hearing the whole track in her ears. So the track is getting louder, and I don't doubt that her vocal is set at a particular level. So in her sound check, she said, oh yeah, that's fine, that volume's great, but the volume of the track has now overtaken her vocal. And there's, on stage, if you've seen the video, I'll put a link to it in the description below, you'll see that she's standing at the top of stairs. There's no foldback speakers here because she's putting on a show, which means she's not getting her voice played back to her, as you have at the front of big gigs. You have a foldback speaker, which plays back a mix of the instrument, or even drums if you want a high mix of that. Your vocal will always take precedence so you can hear it. But she doesn't even have that. So she's relying on her in-ear monitors, and you can tell that she's now lost her reference point because she is, in the waveforms, her voice, she's searching for a note here. She's not dead on the note, it's not auto-tune. She started flat of the G4, and she's searching, trying to hope that her vocal cords are going to get somewhere near a G sharp 4, but she won't know in her head, oh, I'm trying to get a G sharp 4 here. She'll just be effectively shooting blind. Just so you can have a listen to the auto-tune version, here it is. So I'm just going to stop it there. As you can see straight away, we are on lines here, and this was the version that was released a little bit after the fact, after it had been just put through auto-tune. Another thing to put into the equation is that the backing track that Madonna is singing to, when you're watching it on TV, the mix is the original track, or the backing track, matte finish coming through your TV speakers. They're sending that straight to the output channel, and then her voice is in there and then being mixed in. So you're not really getting an appreciation of what it sounded like on the night because the backing track is so up front. So it makes her voice sound more off-pitch than it probably was on the night because it's such a matte finish. But anyway, let's get back into it.
When you call my name, it's like a little bell down on my knees. I wanna take you there in the midnight hour. I can feel your power just like the bell. You know I'll take you there. I hear your voice.
So that whole first section, you'd say, well, what was wrong with that? And like I said, it doesn't sound too bad when you're listening to it in isolation. And when you're looking at the waveforms, we can see that, I mean, she's pretty much starting bang on, slightly flat, but she's maintaining, and this is not really flat. This is why it sounds okay. It's not that far off the note. But as we then progress, it's interesting in that when the harmonies come in, it sounds like she loses her reference point when the lower harmonies come in from the guys that are singing in the choir. I'm just going to take this back a little bit.
I'll take you there. I hear your voice.
So now it sounds like she's lost her reference point because she should be at the F sharp 4, but again, she's searching for the note. So it might have been the case that, I mean, it's sad that we can't get Madonna on the channel to explain what she was hearing, but looking at the waveforms and the way that she performed on the night, I think the lower frequency of the male vocalists might have either produced some resonant frequencies in her in-ear monitors so that her reference point for her voice was lost because she can only hear the resonance of the guys' voices because they're so much louder and she's going to be so much higher than the guys' voices. And it might have been that it just sounds like when the guys get into the lower registers, she loses her reference point.
It's like an angel sighing.
I mean, but that was still pretty good.
I have no choice. I hear your voice. Feels like lying. I close my eyes.
Again, a little bit flat there with that final phrase, but this is nowhere near as bad as it sounded live on the night and in all of the videos that you'll see on YouTube that are reacting to this, saying, oh, wow, it's awful, I can't believe how bad it is. But until you do this kind of investigation into it and the waveforms, you can see it for what it is. The fact that she isn't that far off and she's not got any reference point. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened on the night because this is not auto-tune. Look at how she's right between notes here. Auto-tune doesn't let that happen. It snaps it to either one line in the graph or another line, and the lines are the notes.
Oh God, I think I'm falling out of the sky. I close my eyes. Heaven help me.
So right in this section again, she's lost her reference point. We are flat by a semitone. And then again, if you're following the rough trajectory of this vibrato, she's searching again. It's interesting in that she was flat by a semitone here, starts off a semitone flat, and is trying to raise her voice. Again, she's pretty much shooting blind here.
When you call my name, it's like an angel down on my knees. I wanna take you there in the midnight.
That was interesting there. The first little break in Madonna's voice. So that might have been down to vocal fatigue, maybe, but I'm not so sure about that. I think it's just her not having that reference point. As soon as you start panicking on stage or you think, oh, I can't hear my voice, it puts tension into your performance. And no doubt Madonna would have felt tense performing under these circumstances where she can't hear it as she had wanted to and as she no doubt heard it during the sound check. I think you've got to have performed yourself in big venues to know what this is like. To have that panic that, hang on, I can't even hear my voice. What is going on? What am I going to do? Am I even anywhere close to pitch here? All of these things go through your head when you're singing and you can't hear yourself. But I'm just going to rewind that because we can have a little listen to that break in the voice. It was just on take. And again, we've got more instruments going on here. So she's searching for that reference point, mentioning the argument about she just wasn't trained enough. She should have had more diaphragmatic support. She should have released more as she ascended, gone more for more of a head voice tone, maybe being lighter rather than trying to belt too much. All of those arguments, I think, fall by the wayside, considering that if that was the case, Madonna, for these high notes, instead of going, when you call my name, it's like a little prayer, I'm down on my knees, I want to take you there. Instead of trying to hit all of these notes, she would be going, I'm down on my knees, I want to take you there. And singers do that all the time. They change the melody, because there's loads of backing vocals as well. They change the melody to save their voice. And that is something that Madonna would have done if she felt like she couldn't hit those notes. You know, in the midnight hour, she might even go down, I can feel your power. You know, throwing in little ad-libs. I'm assuming that having the ability to do little trills and throw that in, I think she would have that ability if she felt like she couldn't reach notes. But she's not doing that. She's searching for notes. We'll just have a listen to the auto-tune, but you guys will know exactly what this is going to look like before we get there. And it does sound very auto-tuned because, of course, it was. I think maybe it was more of a pitch correction than auto-tune, but they've just slapped it all straight on the notes again.
You whisper softly to me, you're in control, just like a child.
I mean, and that's the dead giveaway there on the held note, and then down a tone to the F sharp 4, a perfect tone, by the way, because it's auto-tuned. Or should I say, maybe pitch correction. Melodyne is one of those that a lot of you have mentioned in the comments section, where you're literally dragging the vocal 2 on top of the note. And that's exactly what they've done here. They've not done it all the time here. She's allowed to be a little bit flat and then ascend, but the giveaways really are just with the consistency with which we are dead on the notes. And we're not going to be spending too much time on the auto-tune because we all know auto-tune by now.
Now I'm dancing, it's like a dream, no end and no beginning.
Let me just take it back to see if we were dead on that D sharp 4.
And no beginning.
Dead on the D sharp 4. So this isn't her not being able to hit notes accurately. It's her trying to sing as well as she can under the conditions.
You're here with me, it's like a dream.
And that is another little bit of evidence that points towards the fact she can't hear herself clearly, or she's only hearing herself in small sections clearly, because generally when she goes off pitch, the next note is also off pitch. So it's like a tiny bit that she just literally can't hear where her voice is and where the notes are that she's hitting.
It's like a dream.
So let me take that back.
You're here with me.
That, you're here with me. She's a semitone off there.
It's like a dream.
And then this whole phrase, it's like a dream, is where it should be, but she's, it's like a dream. So she goes a little bit flat of it, but it's preceded by another flat note. So she's maintaining her intervals between the notes, but they're both flat because she can't hear it.
When you call my name, it's like a down on my
And again, flat, and we would be flat here if the lines were joined up, but you can get an appreciation of how loud it must be in her ears by now, because we're well into the song. Everything's going to be kicking off. The volume of the instruments and the other voices are going to be really loud, and her voice is, I think, is just staying at the same level. So when there's a brief gap in the instrumental, in the backing track, she gets to hear her voice, and she gets, no pun intended, she gets to hear her voice a little bit more clearly so she can lock in, but then it goes again because of the backing.
In the midnight hour, I can feel your power, just like a breath. You know I take you there. When you call my name, it's like a guitar. Down on my knees, I wanna take you there. In the midnight hour, I can feel your power, just like a breath.
Again, getting towards the end of the song now, this whole section really sounds like she doesn't know where she is. She's just trying to maintain her vocal as close as she can get it, given on, I mean, all you're going on is kinesthetic feedback, which is being able to feel something rather than being able to hear it. And once you're going on that, like when you're talking, you tell me how much you can feel of your vocal cords and where they are connecting, where they're apart. If you haven't trained at singing and spent a hell of a lot of time practicing, most people cannot feel their vocal cords or the musculature around their vocal cords to snap their vocal cords to particular notes. It all happens in your head. So if you can't hear anything through your ears and then work it out in your head, I mean, this is the discussion for the end of this video. Is, would you rather somebody like Madonna? I mean, Madonna's been on the channel before. I've looked at her guitar playing, and I've mentioned how a lot of artists don't even get to the point of learning to play the guitar. And you can tell that she learned to play the guitar. She then performed live, having not played the guitar for very long, sang at the same time. And then you can see that natural progression of learning that she went through to now be very comfortable at playing the guitar and singing at the same time. And I've got huge respect for Madonna as an artist doing that, learning to play an instrument and playing it in front of people like she did so early on in her learning phase of just getting down her chords like the C and the G. So when we're talking about learning to play an instrument, that's great. It shows artistic integrity that she wants to be able to play and sing. Now, bringing that artistic integrity under the spotlight, would you rather somebody try and sing live with no help whatsoever, or would you rather they mimed and just put on a show and maybe didn't say that they were miming and maybe they got found out for miming after the fact? Would you rather that they at least try to do it and then were let down by their in-ear monitoring system and the mix on the night, or would you prefer just to have a good show and for it to be fake? And this is a really serious question, and I think it's such a subjective answer that people would give, because I think a lot of people that maybe had a go at Madonna re-uploading the video with auto-tune now applied, a lot of people probably would respect the fact that she tried to do it correctly in the first place, but she was let down. And we can see here from the waveforms, she's not singing with auto-tune live. That was never set up on the night. She wanted to perform it live without any help vocally. So I think this is a huge thing that has to be addressed and mentioned in a video, because there are so many videos out there saying that she tried to do it with auto-tune and it malfunctioned. That would be so evident on the waveforms. Just to give you that quick example, that this is the auto-tuned waveforms, and this is exactly what it would look like live if she was using auto-tune. It would be snapped on top of these notes. I know this is most likely pitch correction that they've just dragged directly over 440 hertz, standard tuning for your guitars, but equal temperament, just putting it directly on top of these lines that we've got in our pitch monitoring software. Here it would be like this, but it would be snapping to other lines. So it would look exactly the same, but it'd just be a little bit lower down. Maybe snap to this line or to this line, but that's not what we get. Let me just remove it. Look at how none of this, look, even when we do get a note, it's flat of the line. So it would be really interesting to get her input as to what happened on the night. But unfortunately, I think a lot of interviewers wouldn't ask these questions because they haven't done it. As much as I think it would be great to talk to her, for her to take us through this performance, because then it will give you an insight into the technical side of performing that doesn't have a spotlight on it at all. You never talk about this stuff, and you never hear artists talking about in-ear monitors, how the mix was, where she wanted the voices, how the backing track is going to be a matte finish for TV, but it didn't sound like that on stage, and maybe the particular parts of the song where she could hear her voice, and then she got it for a moment, had that reference point, but then lost it again. It'd be great to be able to get all of that input from the artist from a technical perspective. But anyway, thank you guys for requesting this video for me to take a look at. It has been a really interesting one, a bit of an investigation, but let me know what you guys think, as always, in the comment section below, and give me any requests or suggestions of artists or singers that you'd like to have analyzed for pitch correction or auto-tune. I mean, every case, I think, is really interesting to dig into because it's not always as straightforward as it seems. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Rock!